The Great Pacific Garbage Patch. The North Pacific Ocean has over the years gained a buildup of debris consisting of many microplastics and other materials attacking the wildlife below without even trying, giving the name the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. Humans are the reason for this, yet companies still make plastic bottles, wrappers, and more. But how could we stop this without directly stopping these companies? As we discover more of the underwater life, we find creatures able to do the impossible. Discovered in 1899, the larvation is a microplastic dead plant and animal-eating creature that builds a home of the microbits. Now, how will this help the Great Pacific Garbage Patch? Adding a plastic-degrading enzyme into the larvation would allow them to live their lives as they were, but instead of having plastic in their built home, it will now only consist of the dead animal and plant cells with no plastic. During the process of a larvation building their home, they add particles that slowly grow bigger, and once it becomes too big, a larvation will then release their home to sink to the bottom of the ocean, where other marine life will then feed off these dead animal and plant cells, including plastic. In Japan, a plastic-eating bacteria was discovered. Bacteria that feeds only on polyethylene terephthalate, PET, a common plastic in bottles and clothing. The name of the bacteria being Ideonella sakaiensis. This bacteria produces an evolved enzyme that feeds off of plastic. It breaks down plastic by secreting an enzyme known as PETase, which splits the chemical bonds, esters, in plastic, leaving behind more micromolecules that the bacteria absorbs using carbon as their food source. Scientists then have manufactured more of the enzyme and made it better at breaking down plastic. PETase is the new mutant enzyme, which is more efficient at breaking down plastic and can break down polyethylene furandic carboxylate, a bio-based substitute for polyethylene terephthalate. This is a big advantage since scientists have successfully isolated and advanced a plastic-eating gene that can be used for meaningful purposes. Through the use of gene isolation, we can isolate the enzyme since it has already been synthesized by scientists and made it into a new mutant enzyme, PETase. This new mutated enzyme can then be transferred into the host genomes of marine organisms through a method called transfection. Transfection is known as inserting foreign DNA into animal cells, also known as eukaryotic cells. A chemical-based method such as the use of calcium phosphate can bind to the foreign DNA, and when inserting it into the animal cells through a syringe, the synthetic compounds of the chemical makes particles that facilitate the transfer of genes into cells. Once the cells encapsulate the DNA, some of the DNA can be transferred into the genome. In order to create modified organisms through this method, the DNA after it has been introduced into the modified synthetic gene must then be transferred into the viable embryos or eggs. This is usually accomplished through microinjection. The gene is transferred into embryonic stem cells by injecting the DNA into the cell's nuclear envelope to insert the gene directly into the nucleus. To obtain eukaryotic cells, you can extract them from the organisms of your choice, in this case, the marine organism. These cells are normally found in the nucleus where generally your genetic material is found. Organisms that have eukaryotic cells are known as eukaryotes. This process of transferring genes into organisms can be done to the larvation. Since our topic idea of transferring plastic deteriorating enzymes into a larvation doesn't really include anything about sports and exercise, we will be focusing mainly on how plastic in the garbage patch can affect humans and marine life organisms. As we know, plastic doesn't break down easily, so when marine organisms consume it, it will most likely stay in their body forever. Think about it. For example, if humans are eating fish, it has already been contaminated by thousands of microplastics from the ocean. This is a problem because humans are overusing these harmful plastics and they generally don't even care. It's really a never-ending cycle of garbage if you think about it. Some may say that you are what you eat. In polycarbonate plastics such as containers and water bottles, there is a monomer called BPA, which stands for bisphenol A. If BPA enters the body in a large amount from internal epoxy resin, it can cause disruptions in the endocrine systems of both humans and wildlife. Scientists have found ways to ditch BPA, but new problems arise when BPA-free plastics can actually cause sperm count to be decreased. Birth defects, cancer, immune system suppression, and death are examples of problems that can arise from BPA in plastic. When fish consume large amounts of plastic, it can block their digestive tracts, which then leads to death. When adding the plastic-eating enzyme to the larvation, it won't affect their health at all. Overall, plastic and other garbage in our waters can cause horrible problems that honestly would never get solved because no matter what people try to do, these big companies won't stop producing a material that is cheap and that can be used to make big profits. Fish tend to eat anything they think is food, which now is mainly garbage. So next time you're eating fish for dinner, think about the gross plastic garbage they once consumed that will take forever to degrade.